And you're not a real soccer team until you have real enemies.
That's right.
Hey, Philly, that's your team.
Welcome to A More Philly Union, the podcast where we swear to talk about the Philly Union, the whole Philly Union, and nothing but the Philly Union, with as few digressions as possible. We are your hosts. I'm Nate.
I'm Paul.
I'm C.
And I'm Eric.
All right. So welcome to this week's podcast. A little bit of housekeeping. For those who didn't recognize it, that was my son, Nate, giving us the intro this week. So thanks, Nate.
Yay. Good job, Nate.
And our nephew.
By the way, I think my yays come out more sarcastic sounding than I actually mean.
Well,
I truly am like smiling and saying, yay. I just don't want to yell that into the mic.
It's an audio medium.
Like last week when we said Martinez had the birth of his baby, it was like, I was like, yay. It's like, no, I was like generally like, yay. But anyway, sorry.
Not really a whole lot else housekeeping wise, other than we are finally on Apple Podcasts now.
Yay. That was
yes. You should be able to find us there and get your downloads, subscribe, get it once we get this uploaded each week. It was a little, a couple things we had to get done in the background, but E got it done. So thanks to E. And now we're all up and running on all of the major podcatchers.
Yeah, we're out there officially.
It was only 1 pound of flesh. So
only 1 pound of
as bad as it could have been.
So could have been worse. Could have been easier.
Well, there's 3 of us to pay it, so it makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
All right, so games this week. We didn't have any MLS games, but we had 2 very big CONCACAF Champions League games. First at home against LAFC and then visiting LA.
Yep.
The first game was last Wednesday at the wonderful time of 9:00 in the evening, just in time for everybody who gets up early the next day. Again, why? But I get it. They wanted to make it friendly for the West Coast, so whatever. It was a really good game. To be fair, both teams came out. They showed up to play. They were back and forth at each other throughout the game. Players weren't, even though it's a CONCACAF Champions League, it didn't feel like they were getting super CONCACAF-y. Like they just wanted to win.
Mm-hmm.
And it was back and forth. The Union were definitely pushing the tempo of the game throughout both halves. I was going to say through the first half, but no, it was really both halves of the game. They were really doing a good job. Attacking. There were let's see. First half we had the one shot that was called for offside that ended up going off the upright anyway. Carranza and Ora combining in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Carranza getting a shot off. It went off the upright. That probably, if it had gone in, they may, Curtin said that he thought that would have been, allowed on VAR if that had actually gone in, that would not have been called for offside.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that I got out of this game was really Mbaizo's play. I remember watching that game and just being amazed at how well he shut down Vela and Boanga and just seemed to be everywhere that the Union needed a defender to put out a fire. He was there. So like I said, first half back and forth, 0-0 at halftime. You kind of felt good for what the Union was generating. Definitely felt like there were some goals in the game and that the Union could find it if they could get their scoring boots on and get back to where they were against Toronto when, the game before they ran up 4 goals at home.
Mm-hmm.
I really did feel like they were going to get one in the run of play. Second half, they came out. It was once again whole team effort. And then it took a PK, like deep into the second half for us to actually get a goal in this one. McGlynn takes a shot, Acosta, for whatever reason, has his arm way away from his body, and it clearly goes off it.
Maybe this is just a sign of my eyesight getting worse. When they showed that replay, even on the replay, I'm like, was Stewart one of the announcers?
Yeah,
he kept saying, "Oh yeah, it's definitely off. It's definitely off his arm. It's a PK." And I was like, maybe I wasn't looking at the right replay, but I'm like, I don't necessarily see the foul. Like it could have gone off his face. I don't know, but I trust the VAR. Everyone's looking at it and calling it. I'm not going to be sitting on my sofa.
I didn't see it.
I
didn't see it either on the replays, but I assume they had a view. I didn't. Someone did.
And I'm not complaining either.
No.
But I was just like, I guess that's a PK offense.
Well, you had to look at two angles. There was the angle from the sideline where you can see that it doesn't change direction until it's past him and it's off of his elbow. But they kept showing the towards the goal view, and when that one's up, it really does look like it kind of goes off his face. But the two views together make it very clear that it went off of his arm, and that he was making himself bigger, and it wasn't necessarily in a natural position. So the referee rightly awards the goal, and Gajdog was just a wall. Like he just stood there waiting for everybody else to get out of the box, and LAFC, like every other CONCACAF team and most teams in general, just was in the referee's face for a good 2 minutes while they tried to do whatever to psych out Gajdog, and eventually, it didn't matter. Gajdog, got some revenge for the MLS Cup miss and the PK shootout, and put this one away. Totally wrong-footed McCarthy.
I gotta say, there was a bit of Schadenfreude for me, at least, because John McCarthy, started with us, local boy, all great things. But I felt like there's a little bit of exercising the demons by getting this PK past them. It was more about getting it into scoring against LAFC on a PK as opposed to necessarily scoring against John McCarthy. Because again, once a union member, I don't want to say always, but he definitely cut his teeth here, and I enjoyed having on the team. But it's like we gotta to dispel some of these demons or these past ghosts. Like we gotta sink this PK.
Well, apparently Union Hulk, shout out to Union Hulk, who now follows us on Twitter. Thank you. Agrees with you, because he actually posted, "Hey, look, it's J Mac Daddy," which is his 77 warming up for LAFC, and posted a picture of Nate from Ted Lasso post transformation to a Jose Mourinho light. So you're not the only one.
Yeah, but he played a good game. I mean,
yes.
I know
just for the record, I like John McCarthy. I wish him all the best, but at that point, I'm like, we have to get this PK.
Yeah.
So,
and he's no longer wearing the scrum helmet.
That's good.
That's good.
I mean, I didn't have a problem with it. I was never quite clear why he wore the scrum helmet all the time, but whatever. You got to protect the noggin.
Big Peter Check fan.
Yeah, right. It could be. Very possible. After at the 86th minute, Gajdog put that PK away. It looked like the Union were going to finish with a goal lead going into LA.
This is such a familiar storyline. Keep going, Paul.
But then a clearance. The Union are outside the box defending against LA. They get a turnover. Glesnes goes to clear it, and somehow or another it bounces off of a Union player.
Oh.
I'm not even sure which Union player that was. If that was, it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah.
But it was eerily frustrating, and to have it bounce to an LA player who then puts the cross into the box. And I think the one mistake Mbaizo makes all night is he doesn't directly challenge for the ball. And Acosta makes a late run into the box and some sort of sideways scorpion kick, bounce the ball into the ground past Blake. And LA ends up getting the 1-1 tie and the away goal.
That away goal. Game. Not that really mattered, but still, it's just thusly decreed by the soccer gods. That's what it felt like.
I mean, I guess it was a cost to making up for giving up the handball in the first place, but at the same point, just so frustrating. If that ball just hadn't gone off that Union player, if he just had made a different run,
Right.
hadn't been in that exact space for that split second,
Yeah.
probably would have been a 1-0 victory because the Union were just playing so well in that first game. Yeah, I definitely agree with Curtin's comment about Mbaizo playing a 10 out of 10 in that game. I mean, you could make an argument that he could have done something on Acosta's finish and maybe should have, but at the same point, it was a bang play that nobody in their right mind would have thought would happen. And it's such, like I said, it was such an entertaining game. Both teams really played well. And it just ended as a 1-1 tie, and that was a shame for the Union.
Yeah, I was very hopeful that we were not going to let LA get that away goal. It's kind of like that probably overused moniker, but it felt like a 1-1 loss. It's like, oh, man, like not only did we give up the win, but we allowed LA to get that away goal. But
yeah,
we weren't out yet.
No. And, if you ran the numbers in the Union, the last 3 games that they played in LA were 3-3, 2-2, and 3-3. And after you ran the numbers, if they had gotten any of those results in the second half or second game, they would have advanced on aggregate because they would have had the away goal advantage and a tie overall in the game. So long as the Union scored at all, they were putting themselves in a good position to advance. And it is essentially, if they scored it all and they won the game, they were going to advance. If they scored it all and they tied the game, there was a high probability that they would advance. So going into the second game, it looked very, very favorable for the Union. Not guaranteed by any stretch. Obviously, if there were no goals, then LA was going to move forward. Also I forget exactly where it was, but it was certainly later in the first game. Martinez eventually laid down on the field and had to be subbed out.
Yeah.
And we found out during the week that Martinez has some sort of a knee injury.
Yeah.
I still haven't read anything about how severe of a knee injury it is, but it was bad enough that, even though he's a big game player, he couldn't play in LA. So they had to start Flock at the 6.
Yeah.
And
I didn't catch the news about Martinez until game 2, and when they said that Martinez is not in the lineup, I was like, and we're at LA, which is itself a bit of a cauldron, and I was like, this is not an ideal way to start.
Yeah,
I did cite a statistic at the beginning of the game last evening, though, or the second game, saying that it's not having Martinez doesn't necessarily mean that much as far as us winning or losing. Now that could obviously be debated from here till next week, but statistically speaking, it doesn't have the impact that you might think. So I found that interesting that they noted that.
Yeah, I remember hearing that as well. And there certainly is something to be said statistically, maybe not, but same point. He's just such a presence back there.
Yeah.
I was going to say calming presence, but it is Martinez.
It is Martinez. He is a presence, though.
He is a presence, yeah.
But to be fair, that first game in Philly against LA was the first yellow card. He did get his first yellow card in the CCL. That was his first yellow card. Up until then, in that competition, he hadn't gotten any cards.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the second game, they head out to LA. Flock is going in as the 6. Certainly after the last time they had to do that was concerning, but this time they were starting with their regular midfield instead of Perea and Torres. And to be fair to Flock, he did a fine job.
Yeah,
not stupendous, not amazing, but with the support that he got from McGlynn and Bedoya, it was definitely solid. The midfield played well. But I do want to give props to the LA crowd. They were loud and they didn't stop.
And for not being a full stadium filled, they were. It sounded like a full stadium.
Yeah, I was surprised to see as many open seats there as there were, especially since it was a 7 p.m. local time game, whereas we had it at 10 o'clock at night. But yeah,
Still salty.
The between the times and the fact that they gave LAFC a bye in the week on the weekend really kind of pisses me off.
Boo hiss.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the LA crowd was loud and they were banging, they were bouncing, they were dancing, they were chanting, they were, doing everything they could to cheer on their team. So while, I definitely feel like a bit of a rivalry is growing between the teams, I got to respect the crowd.
I agree. Actually, I was going to make a comment about that. I know we're facing Red Bulls this weekend and they are our longtime rivals, but I feel like ever since MLS Cup, there's this rivalry growing between us and LAFC, which is why I noted their uniforms for the second game as their evil black jerseys. I felt like we were playing like a bunch of Darth Vaders.
I actually do appreciate that there are natural rivalries finally formed, or not. I shouldn't say finally forming because it does take a while for them to form, but I believe, didn't we say that Chicago, yes, sorry, different sea town. Chicago seems to be actually becoming a real rival. They were trying to set them up for so long. It's nice to actually have, feels like we've been around long enough to have real enemies.
And you're not a real soccer team until you have real enemies.
That's right.
Hey, Philly, that's your team.
Well, our original enemy, Alexi Lawless.
So much so that it was about 90 seconds in before I worried we were going to see our first red card when Bedoya went studs up right into Palacios, and the referee mercifully only gave him a yellow.
I agree. And
I mean, it's clear he bent his knees and he tried to couch it, but by the letters of the law, that was pretty clearly a red card.
Yeah, studs up, high on the ankle. I was like, yeah, we were lucky only to get that yellow card.
Stu Holden talked about that off and on for probably about 10 minutes, just referring back, not to straight 10 minutes.
Well, Palacios did spend 5 minutes laying on the ground.
I mean, fair.
Rightly so. I'm not saying he wasn't. But,
no, it's true. But I mean, to be a little fair, Stu is particularly sensitive to leg injuries because that's what ended his career, much like Taylor Twellman is particularly sensitive to anything, any head injuries. He often, notes those a lot, but yeah, that seemed to bode ill to me, the 2 minutes in. So that it spoke to the tenor of the team. I think that they were coming in real hot.
Hot. Yeah, but they did. I mean, it was once again an exciting game to watch. I mean, these two teams take the field against each other, and it's fun. It's fun to watch. I mean, MLS Cup, that was it's still considered like one of the best, if not the best MLS Cup ever played. And these two games certainly lived up to that, even if the stakes were slightly different as a home and away.
Yeah. No, related to that, and I'm glad Palacios was not injured, just for the record. I'm very glad he wasn't injured. But they commented that it was Palacios who set bail up for that header that equalized in the MLS Cup. That took us to PKs. So again, I'm glad he's fine and all that, but it's the fact that our captain had that rough tackle on the guy who set up the placed that one domino in the line that eventually cost us that MLS Cup.
Someone else is still mad at Carolina.
No, Bedoya wasn't even on the field for the MLS Cup final, so it could have been him. It could have been something like that, but as far as the rest in the first half, I didn't really have any particular things that I noted there.
LA got the first goal in the 12th minutes.
No, that's right.
Tillman scored. And we did have a good slew of yellow cards. There were 4 yellow cards in that first half. I think we split them, right? 2 for the Union, 2 for LA. So both Bedoya and Ura uncharacteristically got a yellow card.
There were 5. 3 for the Union.
There were 5. I don't have.
Oh yeah,
Bedoya, Ura, and Mbaizo.
Visor got one.
yellow.
Oh, yes, he did. That's right. 41st minute. That's what I have, at least.
And then Bouanga
Oh
and
yeah, I
Murillo.
forgot to highlight it. Sorry.
Yeah. Bouanga and Murillo got it for LAFC. And my goodness, wouldn't it have been nice if Bouanga had gotten a second one? You know, he got his first in the 17th, and it would have been nice if he'd gotten sent off before.
Yeah, obviously this was the tempers were running high and there was an emotional game, but I do worry when you have that many cards and fouls and stopping play in a game, because I've talked about before about refs inserting themselves. Shout out to our friend Mario, just in case he actually hears this. But I don't think that was the case here. I think this was just highly contested.
Yeah, I think that they didn't give out any unfair cards.
No.
I agree with all the cards. One of the things that the announcers talked about was the triangle of death in the first half, which I appreciate, which was the partnership of Carranza, Gazdag, and Ura. And that
Esquire.
What's that?
Esquire.
Yeah. Yeah, the scoring offices of Carranza.
Sorry.
But yeah, I appreciate that they mentioned well, not just appreciate, but they had mentioned that they're an effective trio that are generating lots of goals. There was some statistic they gave about, I'm gonna not even worry about it. It was a large number. I don't remember what it was, so there's no point me talking about this specifically. But anyway, yes, that they mentioned these three as the triangle of death. I'm like that. I like that. That's catchy.
The TOD.
The TOD.
Again, triangles.
Yeah, it's all about the triangles.
All about triangles. Find the triangle.
Find the triangles. Yeah, Blake had a couple good saves there in the stoppage time in the first half, right? He had a nice diving save.
Well, to be fair, he had a great save on the goal.
He did.
The corner,
Yes.
They played the corner in. Sanchez got pretty much a free header, and Blake made a great diving hand save to his right. And then the ball just spilled out to Tillman, was making exactly the right late run, and he beat the defender to it and just pounded it home.
Yep.
Blake did what he could, and then he couldn't get up fast enough to stop the second shot.
Yeah. Right. Like you say, he did his job stopping the shot, and then it's up to the defense to prevent the rebound or just to clear it.
Yep. But unfortunately, it didn't go where I think it was Elliott was able to make a play for it, and Tillman just powered it in.
Yeah.
So very sad. But we all knew that the Union were going to have to score anyway in this game to advance. So whether it was a 1-1 draw in LA or, more goals than that, the Union still needed to score. So they did pour on pressure, went into half down, 1-0. And then, second half started, and
well, uncharacteristically, they actually had the majority possession in the first half.
Well, sure, LA was comfortable just sitting back and making them come play in their half.
Yeah.
A lot of teams have had success by making the Union own possession. Yeah. And, sometimes that works, and, sometimes it doesn't. Like, it didn't work for Chicago when they came into Philadelphia and gave up possession, and the Union ended up getting a late goal, but Torres still put one in late. Unfortunately, in this game, about 15 minutes into the second half, Mbaizo, for whatever reason, fouls Bouanga seriously, gets a second yellow, rightly so, and gets ejected.
Yeah. Again, depending on the replay that I saw, it didn't look like that rough or that bad of a challenge or tackle. But we always defer to the wisdom of VAR. But gosh, that really felt like a nail in the coffin. I don't mean to sound pessimistic.
You can't sound pessimistic in retrospect, I don't think.
Yeah.
I have written in my notebook blurg in capital letters. So
yeah, that sounds about right. I might have thrown a 4-letter word in there, but yes, it does. Once that happened, you just kind of feel like something major has to happen for the Union to have a shot now. They pulled Aura to reestablish the four-player back line by putting Ariel in to Mbaizo's spot, and they tried playing a 4-4-1 or a 4-3-2 throughout the second half. And it's not that they didn't generate attack. They were, but they just couldn't finish. They just constantly couldn't finish.
Yeah.
I don't know what Jim has got the team practicing this week, but I certainly hope that first one touch finishing is amongst it, because they need it. They need all of their players to just be firing shots from anywhere on the, near the 18-yard box.
Yeah. I mean, shot for shot, I guess, in the second half. I mean, the Union got the same number of shots on goals as LA did. We each had 3.
But we only got 3 shots for as much time that they spent in the LA side of the field. Yeah. They needed to be taking more. So I don't really, that second half, it was frustrating being down a player, seeing LA just kind of back it in and just make them, just basically throwing the gauntlet down, saying, "Come beat us."
Yep.
And then that, the straw that broke the camel's back, or whatever idiom you want to use, Opoku, there's a turnover. Vela gets on the ball. Cifuentes makes a great run to kind of pull the defensive part, pull Glesnes away a bit. And then Vela makes a nice play to Opoku in the left side of the box, and Opoku just roofs it. And just, Blake had, a chance at that ball, but only barely. And it probably still, with the amount of power that Opoku and put on that, they would have taken something special to keep it out of the net.
Yeah, it was a good. It was a good shot. It was a good finish. It was a good finish.
And it was the 82nd minute. You kind of felt like at that point the Union had made their subs. That if anything was going to happen, it would have happened by then, especially as they needed 2 goals. LA gets that second goal. And you can kind of just see that everybody was kind of playing for the finish, playing for the end. And then there was one more goal in it, though. Bouanga got one in second half stoppage time. It was a real nice pass into space. Glesnes got beat by Bouanga. Blake came out to challenge for it, but Bouanga just, nicely finishes it past Blake. And they go home. They go and celebrate with their fans, 3-0. One thing I did notice about the LA stadium is they have that wall style of supporters seats where they don't actually have seats. They just have like a bar in front of them, and there's no seats there. It doesn't seem like for the actually sit on. And they were arm in arm, arms over each other's shoulders, bouncing around back and forth. And it's got to be fairly intimidating to play in an environment like that.
I actually didn't notice that. That's incredibly dangerous for the fans. But that's I'll have to look for that next time I watch an LA game. It's interesting. The wheels definitely came off, but that's not to take any credit away from the quality of their goals. I don't think.
I would agree.
They were definitely playing they were defending from an uphill position, and they could just relax. They could let the Union come at them, who were understaffed. In my notes here, I wrote that basically LA is just controlling this game. It was almost like the bigger guy, with this outstretched arm against the forehead of the smaller guy, while the smaller guy's just, windmilling his arms. And that's kind of what it felt like a little bit.
I don't think the Union were quite windmilling their arms.
I agree.
They just, whatever attacks they were putting together just never seemed to materialize into anything effective. And as you point out, if they only had 3 shots in the second half when you're down a goal, that's a bad sign. You're not going to win that way. And they didn't. So we take the loss, we look at it badly, but at the same point, it's 2 fewer games now that the Union have to play.
We can direct our energies and focus to more pressing matters.
I am returning to my original position that I had before we ever got involved in this LAFC mess, and with an addendum. So if longtime listeners will remember that I was hoping we would crash out because I thought this was distracting us from the regular season. I didn't see the point. And then, we won and we're going up against LAFC, and I got caught up in retribution fever And in the end, revenge really only hurts the one seeking it. So would it have been nice? Sure. But honestly, I'm hopefully recovered and back to my original position that I think, I'm glad that we can focus sort of, which we'll get into in a minute, on the regular season, and maybe do something there.
But wait, there's more.
So
we might be out of one cup, but now we're in another cup.
To the second cup tournament.
Yeah, so the U.S. Open Cup, the Union get their first draw into that. It starts next week at Minnesota. Somehow or another, the Union, despite finishing as well as they did last year, doesn't get to host the first round that they're in of the U.S. Open Cup. They have to travel halfway across the country, more so, 2/3 or so, to go play in Minnesota on Tuesday next week.
The Union doing so much traveling, it's going to change how they file their taxes. I mean,
seriously, with the amount of time they're out of the state.
Yeah.
So Saturday's game is in New York against the Red Bulls, and then they're following that up Tuesday against Minnesota in Minnesota. And I can almost guarantee they're going to be having a CCL hangover after this loss to LAFC. Now, one saving grace is it is Red Bulls, and they're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They only have one win this season, although they have 6 draws.
Yep.
They're not far behind the Union in points. I think they're only like 2 points separating the teams. But it's just, the games don't stop. And so we'll have to see what Jim does for lineups for the Union next week.
Yeah, this is a lot. This is really a lot. The density of games here, and they're all travel games, away games. Hopefully that helps us later in the season. I don't know. I didn't look at the schedule, but hopefully we have a nice run of home games, in the later part of the season when we'll really need them.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But at least we don't have the CCL final. So like C was saying, we can start concentrating more on these other things. The U.S. Open Cup, I don't know exactly what that schedule is. Although we will have our first game next Tuesday.
What round in the Open Cup would this be? Is it like
I think it's the round of 32.
32. Okay.
So there's still like 5 rounds. This and 4 more rounds to go.
And these are just single game matches or
nations.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it's tied at full time, they go to overtime and then to penalty kicks.
Okay.
Before we start looking ahead and putting predictions in for the game, I did have a request. If anybody from the Union actually listens to this podcast, I love the Jim Curtin press conferences and the fact that occasionally they would go up on YouTube. You guys used to have a podcast. It would be awesome if those sorts of things were put up in an audio format and podcast out so that we could listen to it. I appreciate the transcripts. They had transcripts for the last 2 Jim Curtin press conferences, which were great, really helpful. But Jim actually is pretty entertaining in his press conferences, and the YouTube is good. But if I'm listening at work, I'd rather just get a podcast. So if that's a possibility, anybody in the Union has anything there, please, be nice to get some more media from you guys. It's no slight to the YouTube media that you have put out. It's really great, but just a personal request. I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
The only other thing, there's really hasn't been a whole lot of news out of the Union after the final. Obviously, since it just happened yesterday, everything up until then was built up about the final. But one little tidbit that I did see, I think it was on Philly Soccer page, somebody put in there about Garrison Draper, who was a person I'd never heard of. Did a little research, or not research, but I just did a little Google seeking, and Garrison Draper was he was the director of sports science at the Union Academy for a bunch of years, and then he became the vice president of player health and performance at the Union up until the end of last year. And during that time, the Union had really good results with players staying healthy throughout their entire seasons. He has left and he's at Inter Miami now. And this year it seems like we've had a significant number more injuries in the club. I know Paul Rushing and the physiotherapists do what they can to keep the guys going on the field, but it's just interesting that somebody brought up this person that I had never heard of, and apparently, he implemented a bunch of changes at the union that really did a great job keeping the guys healthy. And now he's gone, and it seems like we're having some more injuries. You could also certainly say that we have a lot more games this early in the season.
Yeah.
I was going to say maybe the preseason conditioning wasn't quite right this year for the amount of games. Maybe the games have just been a higher intensity earlier than expected. I'm certain that there's still people on the staff that have learned a lot from Garrison Draper or helped Garrison develop his plans. But it was just interesting, and it was an insight into the union office that I hadn't seen before or seen on most of the other feeds, and I thought it was interesting and worth bringing up.
Let's get them back.
Okay, so let's jump into what's going to happen at game day 11. The Union are at Red Bull. It's Saturday at 7:30. Like I said, the Red Bulls, they're actually in last place of the Eastern Conference, 15th place. I didn't look up their recent stats, but they've got 1 win, 6 ties, and I guess that means 3 losses. And it's going to be a rivalry game. These teams are close. They play each other often. They've got a bunch of history. I honestly think that the Union are going to be in a bit of a hangover. I don't think the Union are going to win this one. I kind of think Jim's going to let some of the starters rest and play some of the younger players. I don't think I can call a Union loss, though. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw just because if they lose this one, I would be disappointed, but I would understand it. But I am going to just go with a 1-1 draw. And that pains me. I don't like New York.
Yeah.
Especially the Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Well, against my better judgment and my usual predictions, I'm going to go 2-0 Union.
2-0 Union.
I just can't let Red Bulls score.
This is why you're a better fan than me.
No. No.
All right, you're a better fan than I.
No, you were right the first time.
I know.
Yeah, I think I'm also coming off of a Champions League hangover in terms of my spirits. That I find myself asking, for a prediction. I find myself asking, do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? Yeah, I feel like realistically, who knows what's going to happen, right? But it feels like, I just feel like we're our gas tank's a little empty. I'll be happy, I guess, with the draw at New York. I'm worried that given the hangover fatigue from the whole Champions League and the fact that the Red Bulls have only won 1 game so far this season. This is like, the soccer gods, the MLS writers, it's just perfect, right? That this, against the Union, that's when they get their next win, but I'm gonna dial it back. I'm gonna try to, sadly, this is my level of being positive. I'm also gonna say 1-1 draw,
You guys sound like me tonight. This is usually my role to be the
Debbie Downer.
The Debbie Downer, yeah.
I mean, I'm just kind of trying to be realistic. I'm not so much down on the Union. I just know that usually after a cup performance like this, the team's going to be down a bit. With 2 games like this and another 3-game week, essentially, they're going to have game Saturday, game Tuesday, and a game the following Saturday.
It's a lot.
Curtin's going to have to rotate the squad.
Yeah.
I could see him putting more of the starters in against Red Bull to try to get some MLS points, and then letting I do expect that a lot more of the younger players, a lot of the secondary, the substitute players the rest of the 18 will be in against Minnesota. But Jim's actually been pretty good about trying to keep it to no more than 3 or 4 player changes from game to game, just so he can keep building up the continuity among the players. But I would expect to see Damian Lowe get a start in one of these games, and it wouldn't terribly surprise me if Brendan Craig got to play against Minnesota and in the back line. I think Matt Real is going to get some time in one of these games. I think Harriel is obviously going to get some time in these games. I'm worried about Martinez. If his knee really is hurt, that means Flock and Bueno are going to be in that 6th role. And I think they're both capable. But I'm just more worried long term. Just I want to know what's going on with Martinez, and I don't want him to be out for the season. I certainly hope Bedoya gets a rest in these games. And we can see more of Perea and McGlynn and Torres and Gajdag and so I think there's going to be plenty of rotation. There's going to be plenty of opportunities, and if Jim plays his uses his subs well, he could bring in some pretty potent firepower, and that's in the second half of that Minnesota game to get us through without too much trouble. With that in mind,
all of that might play in our favor too, because a lot of those players don't have I'm sure they're upset about, CONCACAF to an extent, but they don't necessarily have the previous that the rest of the team has with LA and all that kind of stuff. Like the extra layer of being down about it. So, it might actually play. Things might actually go a little better because they might just be young and bounce back and, rubber and magic themselves into a better result than we're expecting.
Yeah, and I think if we can get that win against New York Red Bulls, and I really hope we do, that might be the bit of momentum shift we need to carry us into that Open Cup match, depending on, the health of our guys and how Minnesota approaches it with their, trying to juggle their players and, not, getting too much game time so they can rest, It's up in some respect, the New York Bulls game, the Red Bulls game could be if those young players get in there and help us get that win, that could really, what am I trying to say? Could really
get the snowball rolling downhill.
Get this ball rolling. Start snowballing.
Moment.
Get the momentum going. Exactly. So you know what? This could be right. This is an opportunity. It's not a.
There you go.
So
and the Red Bulls certainly are, and last place there in the East are certainly a team that you got to expect the Union are going to get a result against them. So I'd be happy to be wrong about the tie. I would love to see a Union victory.
I'm going to change mine. I'm going to go with the Christie score. I'm going to say 2-1 Union.
Oh,
I'm gonna hope dies last. So this is going to be the.
I want to be clear that I am not trying to shame anyone into.
Oh no.
We're allowed to be, realistic.
Your own people.
But you're I mean, it's good to be reminded, right? To be, optimistic. But we do have a deep bench. Yes, Martinez is injured. Bizo, I guess is he going to be, because he got the red card in Champions League? How does that translate?
I don't think that translates.
It does not translate.
Okay, so he can be back in, given the fatigue, but these young players can deliver, right? Your Sullivans, your McGlynn's been getting a lot of game time. So I'm gonna bet on us. And
I'm gonna bet on the Union in the Minnesota game. I think they're gonna win that one 2-0.
Okay.
I do think that they're gonna play a solid defensive game in the first half, and I think that Jim's gonna make some subs in the second to get us a couple of goals.
Well, I'm just gonna go with my traditional score.
2-1.
I have no idea.
2-1 Union, not Minnesota, right?
Correct.
All right. So if I just gave that speech about the big turnaround in New York with the 2-1 win over the Red Bulls.
You have given your Hoosiers speech.
Yeah, right.
So now what are you doing there?
22-0.
Yeah. What am I going to say? I'm going to say 1-0 Union.
It'll be interesting because, so far this season, it seems like when the Union have scored, they have scored at least 2. We'll have to see if they do keep that up. All right. So that's the games coming up. We've covered all the news that was, worth talking about. We're hopeful on things, but you guys have anything else?
Well, aside from we're being followed on Twitter by Union Hawk.
Yes, which we did allude to earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also just kind of a fun little thing. Now that we're on Apple Podcasts, I looked at their analytics, and we're officially international now, as we have one download in Poland.
Wow,
so,
cool.
Was it Dzień dobry, Poland?
Dzień dobry. Yep.
So yeah, we are now international. So
yes, very excited about that.
Yeah,
one of my many heritages.
Yeah, any country that we get a download from, we'll say hi in the
poorly in your native language.
In the native language.
Yes.
But so yes, so thank you, Poland.
And much respect for any country who likes to stuff carbs inside of other carbs. And
Yes.
they're doing it right.
Yep.
All right. So as we and wrap this episode up, once again, you can find us at amorphillyunion.com. You can email us at pod@amorphillyunion.com. You can find us at Twitter at amorphillyu. Instagram is amorphillyunion, YouTube amorphillyunion. And you can now officially get our podcast anywhere you're going to download podcasts from.
Yeah.
So please, subscribe, like, comment, shoot us emails, send us messages on Twitter. We haven't given out the homing pigeon address yet, but that might be coming soon. Who knows? Any way you want to get in touch with us, we appreciate it.
And we're shooting for that 1,000 downloads. We still need to sit down at some point and figure out what our donation is going to be then to the Union Foundation. But
make us pay.
Yeah,
basically,
and we'll be happy to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks everyone for tuning in for another episode of A More Philly Union. We are your hosts. I'm Paul.
I'm C.
And I'm Eric.
Go Union!
Mankind was your business. Sorry, that's my
your
deep cut joke.
Your Christmas Carol.
Yep. Because I'm disappearing and reappearing. Get it?
Yeah.